I've been seeing a lot of these guys on my YouTube feed.
Guys, I'm in the store today. I'm gonna see how many items I can find with Red 40 in a few minutes. Let's try it.
Chester Cheetah is not getting that color from cheddar cheese. It's from yellow number 6.
If you want your body to look, feel, and function, then there's no place for these items in your or your family's diet.
These health and fitness bros tell me how bad this part of food is for me. And they're not talking about the sugar content, or the calories, or the fat, or the protein, but instead the color of the food. Specifically, whether or not the food has artificial dyes in them. And that made me curious. Why do these bros care so much about if there's dyes in these foods? Most of the videos I watched from these guys just took it for granted that food dyes were bad. But I will never take anything for granted. And so I spent roughly 4 hours of my time just watching TED Talks, watching YouTube videos, reading 10-page articles to figure out the answer to this question. How bad are food dyes, really? Well, watch this video all the way through and you'll figure out the answer to this question. Artificial food dyes, also known as synthetic food dyes, are petroleum-based chemicals that are added to food to enhance its appearance. Petroleum? Wait, isn't that oil? Absolutely is. Basically any food or drink that has any sort of color is using an ingredient which uses oil. New title for the video, there's oil in your food. These food dyes have only really been used since 1856, when a guy named William Henry Perkin discovered the first synthetic dye called Mauve. Mauve. These dyes were quickly adopted by food companies for their cartoonish colors. Beforehand, if you were making a red candy, the best you could do was this. But now with these oil-based dyes, you can make candy that look like this. And so the old dyes, like beta-carotene or beet extract, became less and less popular as these artificial dyes became more and more popular. While I'll get to the health effects of using petroleum-based dyes later, I think you should really just understand the scale that these dyes are. They're in cherries, every single candy you've ever seen. Almost any pastry you buy. I can confirm this. All of my pastries at my job have food dyes. All junk food. Basically any drink that isn't water, dog food, even medicines have food dyes. What the heck are food dyes doing in medicines? It's not even in the ones that you would expect, like kid versions of melatonin. It's in actual medicine that adults use. And those are just some of the big ones. The next time you go to a supermarket, just look at the ingredients list of everything you buy. Look for names like Red 40 or Yellow 6 or Blue 1. Those are artificial dyes. Any color with a number next to them. You'll be absolutely flabbergasted at just how widespread these dyes are. But you never care if any items had these dyes because you were never told they were harmful or even good for you. You may have not even known they existed until fairly recently, possibly even this video. So let's look at the scientific health effects we have about artificial food dyes. Let's get a list of all the things that people say food dyes cause and what's bad that they cause. They cause cancer, they create behavioral problems in children. 2 things. Well, the list may seem small, but these are both big things I think we could agree on. So let's look at these one by one. So, do these dyes cause cancer? Yes, no. It's complicated. Virtually every single food dye has been tested to see if it's a carcinogen or if it causes cancer. And there's always at least one study that says, yes, this dye does cause cancer. And this would make a lot of sense given that petroleum is a known carcinogen and is a part of every single food dye out there. However, the big papa in the room is the FDA, and whatever the FDA says is what goes. And in 90% of cases, the FDA says that there is not enough information or not enough strong information to link cancer and food dyes. Using sentences like, there is reasonable certainty of no harm, or evidence of harm was not consistent, or substantial, or the FDA reviewed the data and found reasons to conclude that Yellow 6 does not pose a significant cancer risk to humans. There is one big exception, however, and that is Red 3. The FDA said the evidence that this dye causes thyroid cancer in rats is, quote, convincing, according to a 1983 review committee report. And the FDA was trying to do the right thing here. They really wanted this dye banned in the US. However, my favorite thing, corporations. And no, I'm not a communist or a socialist. I just notice when corporations are bad. Cherry companies lobbied the FDA to not place a restriction and to continue the use of Red 3 with the support of the Department of Agriculture, which I found kind of weird, but hey, okay, Department of Agriculture, you continue, cancer. Companies. It's the reason why we have our wealth, but dang, can they be pretty immoral sometimes. Anyways, your cherries are safe now because they use Red 40 instead of Red 3 nowadays. But it's still used in a lot of foods and items like gums, cake icing, fruit roll-ups, you know, all the good tasting stuff, and all the things that aren't trying to pretend like they're good for you. Now, there are a couple of things to take away. First, like a lot of cancer research, and most of it, the studies were on rats, not humans, because rats live a lot less, and they reproduce more, and don't have the same rights as humans. Yeah, screw you, rats. Ooh. Second, just because the FDA decided that these dyes weren't harmful doesn't mean that you have to as well. Remember, it is the same administration that allows lead poisoning in our water. Yeah, did you know that? Yeah, the water that you're drinking, the water that I'm drinking, has lead in it. All right, children. This topic was by far one of the most emotional topics I've ever researched, and it's obvious why. Children.
Each dye affects him differently. Red makes him hyper, gives him migraines, and causes brain buzzing. The behaviors resemble ADHD, and the effects last about 2 days. Green makes him manic, hyper, and euphoric. The behaviors resemble bipolar disorder in a manic phase, and the effects last less than a day. Blue makes him tired, moody, and grumpy. Yellow intensifies emotions, increases anxiety, increases agitation, aggravation, and defiance, leading to violent outbursts and thoughts of suicide.
And there is scientific evidence to back this up. The California's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, or COHA, has found that food dyes do cause adverse behavioral changes in children. COHA suggested the FDA is not properly accounting for the behavioral changes in children when saying how much of each dye is an acceptable amount to be consumed, and cite this as a reason for the rise in ADHD and mood swings in children today, which has risen from 6% of kids aged 4 to 17 in 1997 to 12% in 2020 to 2022. See, parents, it's not us that are getting dumber, it's the dyes you feed us. A well-researched review on the potential impacts on synthetic food dyes on activity and attention in children, a review of human and animal studies, also came to the conclusion that the data and evidence is pointing towards food dyes having effects on children's behaviors. And if you want to read more about this article, I left it down below in the description with all my other sources. Enjoy a wonderful, entertaining, 16-page read. Why do I do this for free? Another study found that food dyes, along with sodium benzidate, increase hyperactivity in both 3-year-olds and a group of 8 and 9-year-olds. Another study found that tartarazine, also known as yellow 5, has been associated with behavioral changes including irritability, restlessness, depression, and difficulty with sleeping. I could definitely see that one. So see, it's not bad decisions in my bed. Hey yo, it's these dumb dyes you're giving me, this dumb yellow 5. A 2004 analysis of 15 studies concluded that artificial food dyes do increase hyperactivity in children. Another study found, however, that not all children react the same way to food dyes. Researchers at Southampton University found a genetic component that determines how food dyes affect a child. That's the big one, because after all, we know food dyes might actually cause behavioral changes in children, but there's not so much conclusive evidence that the FDA can risk banning these dyes, and then 10 years later it turning out that these dyes are fine, because the FDA knows that people are going to find a way to be irritated about that. Trust me, I work at Starbucks. People find a way to be irritated about everything. I'm just drinking water, Karen. But there is quite a lot of evidence that these food dyes are changing children in ways that we don't even fully understand. However, my own opinion, of course, is that from looking at all the anecdotes and all the evidence I've seen, is that a genetic component is the most likely factor for why kids are experiencing these changes. These changes don't affect all kids, but just some kids that are genetically predisposed to having these effects. If any of you have kids out there, or maybe are a kid yourself, who are experiencing sadness, irritability, ADHD, bipolar, maybe try removing the dyes from the kid's diet and see how it affects their behavior, because there are quite a lot of anecdotes of kids being a lot more stable after removing food dyes from their diet, as it seems like there's a group of kids that are just high responders to these dyes. There's studies showing that 73% of kids diagnosed with ADHD saw a decrease in symptoms when on an elimination diet, or a diet that eliminated all food dyes. And if you're asking me, I'd much rather go through the annoying process of removing food dyes from someone's diet and testing how it affects that kid for a few months than having to fork up the hundreds of dollars it would take to go to therapy or for medications. So, we know that there's evidence to support that food dyes cause cancer. We know that the FDA does not think this is a big enough threat and calls artificial dyes generally safe. We know there is a lot of evidence to support that food dyes cause behavioral problems in children. We know that the FDA does not think this is a big enough threat and calls artificial dyes generally safe. We know that the FDA is part of the matrix. Another story about the FDA and their collusion with the Matrix is their lax attitudes towards microplastics. Even though they cause cancer, and they cause infertility, and hormonal issues, and are currently turning our planet toxic. Check out this video right here to learn how there's plastic in your blood and it's deadly. And don't forget to check your label, don't consume petroleum products, and think better. I'll catch you over in this video right here. And for the lucky ones of you that are staying here, I dropped my chair on my light, and so now here, look at this, in my laundry basket. Bye bye.